Hello, welcome back. Today is going to be a very short video about looping map generation. In the past couple of videos I've been explaining, chunk meshing and blah blah blah. And so now it's kind of the same deal, but just for looping map. In an even older video, I talked about looping maps, and so it's just a very cool feature, I think, that allow the player to just loop around. So the map is not infinite, but when you reach the end of the map, you just seamlessly go back to the beginning. And so obviously to achieve that properly, to not have a very obvious seam, we need to deal with that in the generation. And I'm just going to try to reach the map. The map, this one is like 100 chunks long, so I just need to reach, I just don't want to miss it, to reach the edge of the map, because, we reached it. And so right now, I'm going to go here in the middle. So right now, what's on the left of the red sphere? The red sphere is the player, by the way. So what's on the left of the red sphere is the end of the map, and what's on the right is the beginning of the map. So I can tell it's the transition zone, because it's not perfect, as you may be able to see. There is some kind of it's not a completely invisible seam. I can probably improve that a bit. I will explain in more detail what I'm doing, but but overall I think it's quite fine, because when you look at that, you can't really tell that the map is looping. It just looks like it's continuing as it was before, but actually we're just at the beginning of the map here, where we were at the very start of the video. Again, we can see it a little bit. So it's quite nice. It's not super difficult. It's just a lot of parameters that you can tweak to make it more seamless. And I'm just going to relaunch with 3D noise to show that it's also working with 3D noise. I disabled 3D noise by default because right now I just haven't worked on it. So it's stupid, ugly, and there's wormholes in the whole map. So it's quite annoying. But it's important to also make it work in 3D, because admittedly the 2D part is the easiest. And so we are back with 3D noise. Now the maps looks quite different, but the principle should be the same. I just need to find again the transition zone, the place where we reach the end of the map and the map starts again. And by the way, I would encourage you watching the video about looping maps. It was before I implemented the meshing, so it's much more abstract, but it's still interesting, I think. Okay, so we reached the same place. You may recognize it. And so obviously there is a bug right now with the lower LODs. So these chunks have not been generated fully, and so the mesh is bugging out. I need to fix this, but it's actually working. Should be working for the actual fully generated chunks. So if I go here again, you might be able to tell that it's looping around. It's a little bit strange in a way, but it's mostly seamless, I think. So it's quite nice. It works with the 3D noise as well. When you look at this from afar, you can't really tell that you are obviously repeating something or whatever, because I'm going to now show how it works. And we're back without meshes. I have disabled the meshes completely. What we're seeing right now is just debug points, and there are so many of them that Unreal is going crazy, and so I apologize for the screen. So I have just set up the color on these points to show the transition region. Right now it's white because we are not in the, now we are in the transition region. So now what we're seeing right now is the blending that's happening, and so I'm sorry, it's very confusing, because right now it looks, when we take a look at this, it looks like it's terrible, but I'm sorry, but the the debug is not very clear. So basically the one on the left and on the right the color are inverted. So right now they look like the transition is not working at all. But actually, if you change the red for the green and then green for the red on the right side, you end up with a matching blending. And so, as you can see, I'm not just blending linearly. I have to use some noises to make it more interesting, because if you don't use noises for the blending, it's going to be very obvious. Like, you're going to have a completely parallel transition, which is going to be very obvious. And so, if we take a look at the left half of the transition, the red is basically no transition. We're still using the data from the left of the map. And as we go to the green, we are basically interpolating between what would have been this noise value and the noise value of the opposite side of the map. And so when we do this, when we apply the same thing but reverse it for this side on both sides, then we end up with a more or less matching region. And so right now we are just in a simple transition between two sides, but you also have to deal with the corners, which is slightly more expensive because you have to compute 4 times the amount of data instead of twice as much. Let's see if we can reach the other end of the map. It's going to be even more confusing in terms of colors because only one of the blending. Okay, so don't pay too much attention on the color, but as you can see, we need to deal with 4 so 2 axes basically, and as you can see, it's not working perfectly. I mean, right now we're only seeing dots, so but in the real map there will not be any hole. It's just going to have like a wall of blocks at this point, like 2 blocks up. Anyway, I can improve that. It's just I didn't want to spend too much time on this yet. But right now, basically, we are in the corner of the map. So yeah, we need to do some crazy blending in here. And so, talking about blending, so right now we are seeing the result of the final floating point value that I'm using between 0 and 1 to blend between the various regions. But what you don't want to do is to compute the height and then blend the height. I'm only talking about the height, but it's the same in 3D. Right now I'm only showing in 2D because it's way easier to visualize. In 3D it would be extremely confusing. Yeah, so one thing I noticed when implementing this, and that might be useful if you want to do the same, you don't want to compute all the data. And for example, talking about the height map, you don't want to compute the height and then blend the height between the various parts of the map. What you actually want to do is to instead blend the noises that are used to generate the data instead of blending the final data. It's actually much easier to do it that way. Not only you can make a generic blending method like I did for just blending any noise that you give it according to the position of the chunk, but it's actually much simpler. Like right now we are only talking about height, but when you have an actual map with blocks and stuff, when you want to have complex algorithm to generate like what kind of block it needs to be, like is it grass, is it rock, is it dirt, or whatever. So it's much easier to do the blending before. So just blend the noises value. It's always going to be like floats values, and you just can blend this single type of data and then use these blended noises to generate your stuff instead of doing the whole complex thing over multiple times and then blend it. Because it's slightly more expensive. Like it's not noticeable, but for example, to generate these data for these chunks, I need to generate twice as much as these white chunks that are just one. You just have one generation. You don't need to generate 2 values and then blend between the 2. And as you may notice as well, like the thing on the white, the thickness of the white part in here is just 1 chunk. So we have actually 2 chunks of of blending between the end of the map. One chunk is kind of too short. You can notice the transition. So yeah, it's something it's tweakable, so you can expand or decrease this value. So you could have much bigger blending region, and with with a much bigger blending region, it's more expensive because you have more chunks to blend, but it's much smoother. It can also be too smooth. Like if you increase the blending region too much, it's becoming too smooth, and you kind of lose the interesting part of your generation, and you have like very smooth like valleys and peaks instead of an actual interesting generation. So yeah, you have to strike a good balance between the two. All right, so I didn't get into too many technical details. I just wanted to show the final result, and okay, I'm going to stop because right now it's very crazy, this recording. All right, yeah, see you next time.